Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining today's webcast, How to Get a Happily Ever After with IT Operations Analytics. I'm Robin Ray, your Tivoli User Community Group Manager. As part of your community management team, I would like to encourage you to visit the community following this webcast to download this and previous presentations given to our member community. In this session, learn how IBM Operations Analytics Solutions can help you. Today's presenters are Matt Rodkey, IBM Product Manager Operations Analytics, Predictive Insights, and Steve Smythe, IBM Market Segment Manager Operations Analytics. Before we get started today, I just wanted to cover a few administrative details. All phone lines are in listen-only mode. You can ask a question at any time using the chat tool. If your chat question is not answered during the presentation, we will address the questions at the end. Today's session is being recorded, and you will be provided with a copy of the materials following today's call. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Steve. Steve, take it away.
Great. Thanks very much, Robin. Thanks very much for joining. Again, my name is Steve Smythe, Segment Manager for the Operations Analytics portfolio within IBM. And today we're going to be reviewing the portfolio of capabilities and that IBM brings into the space, but also, before we go into that, giving you an understanding of how we see these various technologies operating in the operations environment, and also giving you a little background in terms of some surveys and some independent research that's out there that you may not be aware of, to see how the operations analytics area is changing rapidly over the last few years. So let's go to the next slide. So one piece of research, and I think for anyone who's operated in the operations domain, the amount of data that's actually being generated from data centers, network, application stacks, operating systems, and everything else, be that cloud deployed or on-premise deployed, has been, this amount of data has been generated, over decades of time. But a lot of that data has been either sitting on the floor or has not been utilized to its most effectiveness until recently, thanks to the introduction of a lot of these new big data technologies, big data analytics technologies. So the operations analytics domain that we're going to be speaking about today is really a part and parcel or segment of the wider big data analytics space. And of course, this has a huge hype in the market right now in terms of, and a lot of spend. The space is almost $300 billion in spend today across the globe. And the interesting part here, though, if you look at this study, and this comes from the IBM Institute, our own analytics study, in terms of the overall use cases for big data and analytics, of course, still the majority at 53% is around customer-centric type use of big data and analytics technologies. So this is improving customer acquisition, experience, really this one-to-one marketing explosion that's going on of mining both customer sentiment and customer likes and dislikes for selling products and services. That's still the boatload at 53%. But second, and very highly second and growing rapidly, is the 40% of using big data and analytics technology for operational efficiency purposes. So that is a huge increase over the last couple of years from the IBM study. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that some other independent research coming out of EMA and Analyst, as well as Ninesight Consulting on a webinar that they had in February, shows a dramatic shift from 2012 in terms of the data usage in more human-sourced, again, more of those customer-centric activity, from 41% shifting down into the 30% area, and the big growth in more of the machine-generated type data usage here for big data analytics technology. So this is a chart of how all of big data and analytics projects are being leveraged and what data sources are being used, and you can see the machine generated. Now that's not just operational purposes, of course. That could be the Internet of Things domain and other domains, but the machine generated data source is now the single highest source of data for all big data and analytics technologies or use cases. So you can see the huge demand here just in the last couple of years, and the shift, not necessarily away from the one-to-one marketing, but more another emphasis in the operational domain for the use of big data technologies. Let's go to the next slide. So from IBM's perspective, of course, this is a major bet, one of the 5 major bets that IBM is making across the technology domain, and we've made more than $17 billion in acquisitions alone. That doesn't include organic in-house development. That is in acquisitions since 2005 in the analytics domain. And what we're doing for the IT Operations Analytics area is taking the best capabilities from these acquisitions, as well as rounding it out with organic development to provide a suite of capabilities to target the IT operations domain. So think of it as not necessarily starting from scratch, but actually taking a lot of the top-tier firms across a variety of different technologies and what we're doing in the wider big data and analytics space. Next slide, please. So our view of the world, and this is not unique to us, but just the way that we'll hear it in this presentation in terms of how we see the wider IT service management operational domain. I think we've been messaging around the key values that we're providing here, and most other vendors in this space are around visibility, control, and automation. And all of that is really around those 4 key bullets at the top here, where we're trying to increase delivery of velocity and quality of new business services, increasing the quality of service and reducing costs by resolving problems faster. We're predicting and preventing issues before they impact end users, and then we're also driving overall efficiencies of business processes and asset utilization in the operational domain. So that's what falls into the 3 keywords: visibility, control, and automation. And the key stakeholders that this area is targeting is all around your IT operations area. It's also inclusive of the development domain. So there's a lot of tools and capabilities here that is very focused on your own internal development, and smaller development organizations as well can make utilization of these solutions. And of course, the stronger emphasis of a lot of these solutions now being championed and developed and deployed out of the line of business. So each of those 3 areas are key stakeholders for all these capabilities and services. And you'll see that we focus on these 3 areas of pillars of IT service management around operations. So this is your IT operations end-to-end, managing your entire operating environment and domains across the board, and giving you the ability to essentially maintain and manage those environments and keep the availability and performance of those solutions up to the utmost level across the board. Then within performance, this is very specific to your application stack or an infrastructure that puts up a specific business solution to maintain the health and performance of that specific application or infrastructure. And then the automation associated with that around help desk and service desks associated, and all the processes within your operations environment go with that, be that workload scheduling and workload processes or other processes to ensure that they are operating at the fastest area and also at the lowest costs. And within each of those 3 pillars, it's important to note that analytics has a place to play in all 3 of those. So it is a capability in its own right, but it's also an embedded capability across each of operations, performance, and automation. And so we're going to focus on that analytics area around and the key values associated with that, but think of it as both an overlay to essentially existing capabilities that you may have in each of operations, performance, and automation, be that from IBM or be that from another vendor. It doesn't matter from an analytics perspective because the data is being sourced from a lot of those other environments. And the other key thing to remember here is the prevalence of hybrid. So most people are usually have some systems basically today on-premise. Some are actually firstly being deployed on cloud, and we also have some that are a little bit of both or in some sort of hybrid environment. But in general, in your operations and performance and automation domain and the analytics on top of that need to operate across the board so that you have full end-to-end visibility. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt to go through our the analytics focus and our IT Operations Analytics portfolio.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. So, first of all, let's just take a look. So we're down the level, right? The band there, looking at how analytics applies across the IT operations domain, IT service management domain. So, the real focus of IT Operations Analytics is helping you reduce, prevent outages and slowdowns in your application environment. And as you saw from some of the data that Steve presented earlier, the amount of operational big data that is generated by your environments on an everyday basis, on an every hour basis, is growing and growing and growing. And really, IT Operations Analytics provides you with the tools to be able to take a look at that data and actually find the proverbial needle in the haystack to help you solve these problems. Right? And some of the things across the bottom here that we can help with is never set performance thresholds manually again. Identify issues before they become service or customer impacting issues, before that trouble ticket actually gets open. And isolate the cause of the problem through analysis of your IT data. Again, find that needle in the proverbial haystack that's the actual cause of the problem. So the way we look at IBM look at IT Operations Analytics is we further subdivide it down into 3 pillars. So the first is around predictive analytics, being able to predict problems before they become service impacting. Again, that's a shift to the left. How can I get alerted sooner when there's an emerging issue in my environment? On the next side, the next level is search. Okay, I've identified that there is a problem or potential problem in my environment, and I've got a whole boatload of data to potentially find the cause of that problem. How can I quickly search and find that associated problem, get it fixed before it becomes service impacting, right? And then sort of round that out with optimizing, right? How can I make sure that my infrastructure is operating as efficiently as possible? We've got some customer quotes there on the bottom, and we'll get into each of those in a little bit more detail. They've each got their own slide a little further in the deck, so I won't read out and quote them on this particular slide. But again, we talk about the notion of search, predict, search, and optimize. And while these are all individual capabilities, they also can work together as part of an integrated workflow. Right? So depending on where you are, you may start at any one of these points on your IT Operations Analytics journey, but they all can interrelate together. So again, with prediction, early problem identification. Right? And if we look, those events that are raised by predict can be fed into search to help me triage and diagnose problems. And with search, as I've started to find and fix common sets of problems, I can feed that into the optimized tier to help me more efficiently use my resources, not end up solving the same problems over and over and over again. Right? And likewise from optimized, right? The threshold events that are managed at the optimized tier can be reduced, and the amount of events that are coming through that tier can be reduced by early warning and early detection through predict. So again, we see these 3 tiers as being critical to how you attack IT Operations Analytics. So in the next section of the presentation here, we're going to walk through the IBM offerings in each of these three pillars with a little bit of detail, and then once we get done with that, Steve and I will take you through a couple demos of this in action. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the predict side. Our offering here is IBM Operations Analytics Predictive Insights. And really the goal here is around becoming proactive and as opposed to reactive. And one of the easiest to get value propositions out of this offering is around automated threshold maintenance. And by that we mean oftentimes we find our customers are spending a lot of times with static thresholds. If response time goes above X number of seconds, send me an alarm. If CPU utilization gets more than 85%, send me an alarm. With Predictive Insights, with no setup at all, we just monitor that particular metric, CPU or response time, and even the relationship between CPU and response time, understand what is normal in your environment, and alert you when something goes away from normal. And we can understand that on Friday night at 10 o'clock you run a batch job, so therefore your metrics may look a little bit different. So we're not going to warn you there, right? So it takes away a lot of those false positives and false negatives from threshold maintenance. As you'll see when we talked about one of our key references in Consolidated Communications, there's a significant amount of savings that can be had just in this particular benefit itself. Anomaly detection, right? The notion of being able to tell you, like I said, we learn what is normal in your environment. And when something starts to emerge as deviating from normal, it can let you know so that you can go ahead and investigate the problem, find and fix the problem before it becomes service impacting. And in practice, this early warning can be anywhere from 4 hours, 8 hours, even like 24 hours prior to where you might have gotten an alert using static thresholding. We deliver this capability both as an on-premise offering as well as via SaaS. And we'll talk a little bit more about the SaaS offering, which is new for us in the first quarter. We'll talk about that on another chart here in a few minutes. It supports heterogeneous environments. Predictive Insights basically takes as input time series metric data from anything that collects time series metric data. We have out-of-the-box integrations with our own stuff, as you might expect, but literally anyone that can produce time series metric data, we pull it in. We've actually, in fact, seen some very interesting experiments being done with time series metric data about maintenance of physical assets, even outside of the IT domain. So it can do a lot of very interesting things. So there's an interesting question that's up, I noticed in the text chat here, and I'm going to go ahead, while we are going to try to take questions at the end, I think it's important to hit right here. It's asking about how much lead time does it take for the tool to develop this understanding. We'd call that learning, right? Because out of the box, right, after 5 seconds of using the tool, of course, you're certainly not going to be able to know what normal is in the environment. So in general, that's anywhere from 3-4 days up to about 2 weeks to learn. And really the reason that there's a range there is that it kind of depends on the quality of the data. So you install a tool like this in a test environment that has trickles of data coming through, it may take a little bit longer to build a model. In a high traffic environment, it's a much shorter period of time. But it's in the range of anywhere from 3-4 days up to about 2 weeks to learn this. And that model constantly is getting rebuilt and reevaluated as new data comes through. So that's a very good question. So I'm going to talk to you about, we just had a release in March, about a month ago. We just talked about what's new here. So we've improved our time to value here, and just to go back to the previous question, it used to be that the answer to that question was always a flat 2 weeks to even outwards of a month. Now we've improved it so that it's down to less than 5 days, as stated on here. And again, really the reason that you can't give an exact answer to this is it really all depends on the quality of the data. You know, garbage in equals garbage out. The better data you get, quality of data you get coming in, the faster you're going to be able to build a reliable model. We've added some new analytics that are very targeted at specific scenarios, such as memory leaks, hangs, or flat lines, which are very, we've seen a bit in a number of environments. We've also improved the accuracy to minimize, and I've got it in quotes there, false alerts. So the math never lies. The math will always tell you if I'm looking at a value and I know what normal is for that value and this is not normal anymore. But the reality is sometimes there can be a difference between what the math says and what the end user actually cares about. So we continually are tightening our algorithms based on feedback and experience using the tool on real world data, so that we may not alert on something that the math might tell us is a problem because it's not really a real world problem that someone needs to take action on. So again, and that's something that always, you know, with analytics, we're always going to look to add more better algorithms with better output as we continue to grow this product. So I mentioned we have an as-a-service offering. It's actually an add-on to our performance management as-a-service offering on IBM Service Engage. So you can basically pay for Predictive Insights as an add-on, completely integrated into the application performance management as a service offering on Service Engage. In fact, when I do a demo in a little bit here, that'll be the demo that I use to drive through will be of that particular offering on Service Engage. And encourage you, you can go there, you can learn more about it. You can actually request a free 30-day trial as well on Service Engage. So I mentioned Consolidated Communications and their threshold maintenance. So Consolidated Communications is a communications company. They look at a lot of monitoring their network. And the big thing that they got, the big takeaway that they got out of this was virtually eliminating the need to set manual performance thresholds on their KPIs that they're monitoring in their environment. And in doing so, they're able to have a cost avoidance of $300,000 US yearly by being able to take those resources that we're spending time setting, adjusting, moving manual static thresholds, and let the analytics and the alerting that comes out of analytics do that for you. When they took a look back, right, after running the tool for a period of time, they were able to look back and say that using the analytics, they predicted 100% of incidents that would have been outages, would have been incidents in the past, including things that may have been silent failures in the past, were brought to their attention by the use of analytics. So not only were they able to save on actually doing their threshold maintenance, they actually avoided things that in the past would have been outages or major incidents for them. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Steve, who's going to hit the next part of the pillar here, which is going to talk a little bit about our offering in the search pillar.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So Matt talked to you all about the predict aspect of things. But one thing is once you determine that you have an issue and you may be able to get some information from Predictive Insights telling you essentially where to look, the idea now is you're going to a much more diagnostic phase here to determine exactly what's going on, and the idea is there's a related tool set here within the portfolio of Operations Analytics. It's called the Log Analysis Solution, but don't let the name pigeonhole you too much. It does use log sources as a main data source to do this diagnosis, but the key aspect here is searching across all your operational big data that's available to you. Okay, and the goal here is actually to give you within a single pane of glass, and you can see a screenshot there, a very interactive user interface to actually drill down, filter, search, and display using analytics and graphical techniques a summary of this data across all your operational data to be able to triage and determine root cause as fast as possible. And that's using all the searchable data that you may have, be that log sources, be that performance metrics, be that alerts and alarms, as well as documentation sources and support documentation to actually help you take it from isolating those problems to actually resolving those problems. And that's one of the key differentiators that we talked about here in terms of our expert advice. So one key benefit here is, again, the searchable data, all the data sources that you can bring in. It has essentially a simple user interface, and through that single pane of glass, being able to search across it through keywords and then rapidly filter down based on the result set to determine a root cause. And then taking that root cause and then through a further search actually determining what to do about it. So one thing is to say, okay, I got this air condition at 1900, and I know what the error and warning condition is, that it's actually causing my performance issue, but what do I do about it? And essentially, IBM provides support portals and documentation support, best practices, all posted in various areas, and you may have your own knowledge bases. You may have your ticket data that actually tells you how you resolved this problem previously. And all that is also searchable through the expert advice capability and actually taking you from isolating the problem to actually resolving that issue in short order as well. So taking you this full closed loop by being able to show you exactly the next steps to resolve that issue. And again, this tool, again, is all around faster problem resolution, reducing that mean time to repair, and ultimately higher availability and higher customer satisfaction for these mission-critical type applications. On the third side here, this is all supported across both our distributed operating system environments as well as our mainframe. So if you're a Z client, either Z Linux or ZOS, these environments are also fully supported and integrated into, again, that same single pane of glass, as opposed to having different tool sets for different environments. And the other thing, and I'll show you some of the out-of-the-box bundling we've done, we've embedded this capability across our portfolio. So there is generic search capabilities and other analytics capabilities that are dependent or search-oriented that we've embedded within our application performance management, within our operations management, and other solutions here, where we're taking the same capability and allowing you to use that in conjunction with those other offerings and seamlessly, and providing you both in-context passing as well, so that they actually provide synergistic capabilities across the variety of tools. And I'll actually show you some of that and demonstrate some of that a little bit later. Next slide, please. So in terms of what's new with the latest release, again, release came out in March across the portfolio here. And within that March release for log analysis, one was full globalization. Prior to that was just English only. So we have 10 supported languages across the major languages across the globe. We have faster problem identification through real-time alerting, as well as the dashboards were manual refresh. Now you can actually set up schedule for auto refresh on those. But the alerting and scheduling of save searches and then alerting you to certain conditions on a periodic basis are all now supported. One of the big inclusions here is now our integration of Hadoop support. So Big Insights is IBM's big data platform around tooling for Hadoop infrastructure. You can now actually provide a slower tier of search all on Hadoop clusters and integrate that with the Big Insights offering, so that you can essentially rapidly search short-term data, but also search across 6 months, a year of data in a little bit slower time frame, but again across Hadoop clusters, so that if you determine that you have, in the short term you have this issue, but you wanted to say, okay, how many times has this happened over the last year, you can take on that search and use the longer-term storage across a full big data platform and leveraging the Big Insights offering. So that gives a much higher increase in capacity for storage of data. And then there's also a new ecosystem. We'll drill into this in a future slide as well, expanding the extensions of the capability into a variety of domains. And we're building these organically from ourselves within IBM for the middleware components that we know well, WebSphere, DB2, MQ, information broker, and these other various domains that we know how to diagnose. But for the domains that are third-party that we don't necessarily have the expertise to diagnose those environments, we're relying on some of our business partners to provide those extensions. And so there's a wide variety of extensions available now. This year will be even a much exponential increase in the number of extensions available to this offering for domain-specific diagnosis. Next slide, please. Another new capability, you may or may not be, I'm going to assume you know a little bit about Bluemix. That's basically our platform as a service offering. But within our Bluemix domain, there is a service called Monitoring and Analytics. And essentially, that's a combined capability of our application performance monitoring management environment plus our log analysis solution joined together as a service for customers and developers of capabilities who deploy on our platform or service Bluemix environment. It has both a free capability, so you can use it free of service when you attach it to your various runtimes, and it also has a paid service as well that gives you increasing capability. But for those of you that are thinking of operating on the Bluemix environment or already are and may not be aware of this capability, which is essentially our on-premise and SaaS capabilities of our APM as well as log analysis solution joined together in one service. Okay, and actually is the 7th most popular service on the entire Bluemix environment. And again, this is primarily for the developers and ongoing ops environments for those the Bluemix applications you have running to diagnose problems and rapidly determine any issues you may have. Next slide, please. So a recent case here on the log analysis product, China Merchants Bank, one of the largest banks in China, essentially looked at our IT Operations Analytics portfolio in general. They really came to IBM looking for a solution to help in determining reducing their outages, reducing their the time to repair applications. They were looking primarily for a log analysis type solution initially only. There was various competitors in that bid, and the one thing they saw was, first of all, the competitiveness of the log analysis solution in its own right, but one of the key differentiators was the breadth of the capabilities of adding both search and prediction that Matt just covered into the same capability. And by essentially having this cohesive capability in conjunction with predicting as well as proactively avoiding outages, but determining when those anomalies occur, rapidly being able to diagnose those issues through search in a single platform was of a key benefit to them. So China Merchants Bank is one of the key new customers for us, leveraging two capabilities of the platform, but led with search as being the initial need. Adding to next slide, please. So in terms of the optimize pillar, remember we have predict, search, and optimize. We talked to predict, Matt did. I just spoke to search. For optimize, this is really all about reducing your operational costs, being much more efficient in your operations environment across both the assets that you use in terms of what capabilities you must have to turn up to provide service, as well as around the human capital and the human costs of your operating environment. And so the more efficient you can be, the better off you will be in terms of overall costs, but you don't want to crimp on actually your availability or your performance of your applications and services. So the idea here is to strike a balance, and our offering for the optimized area is around NetCool Operations Insight. This is essentially an upgrade to our NetCool Omnibus product area, if some of you will be familiar with that. And upgrading to NetCool Operations Insight embeds a lot of analytics capability. And at the heart of that is the Operations Analytics platform and set of capabilities within NetCool Operations Insight. So I remember that pillar that I showed you on ITSM where analytics is embedded and sort of overlaid on top of a lot of these capabilities. NetCool Operations Insight is one example of that, where we've embedded a lot of analytics, primarily around event analytics. So ways to summarize where your critical events are coming in, what events are actually of little use or indeterminate use, or where you can't essentially take sort of action, and then realizing that you should have some rule conditions or be suppressing some of these events because they're not things that you can actually do anything with, and they're just noise. So analyzing all those events using these search and capabilities allow you to set up a much more efficient operation. The other thing is just in terms of triaging capabilities. So inherent in triaging any events that come in are generally isolating the problems and determining where you need to escalate these to. And using the event search analytics and embedded search capabilities allows you to provide that capability. And as well as some of the new visibility and capabilities within NetCool Operations Insight as well is very differentiating. But think of it as the operations domain here leveraging analytics in conjunction with the solutions that you just heard in terms of optimizing your environment. Next slide. So a recent case study for NetCool Operations Insight is Clarinet. They're essentially a managed service provider, a former user of the NetCool Omnibus solution, upgrading to NetCool Operations Insight. But the biggest benefit they have was in essentially the analytics to provide them, a collected visibility of all their data, but also the analytical views that it provides in terms of where their operators or where the events are coming from, where they're spending most of their time, where they actually can reduce the event load and get their operations and teams at a much more efficient pace, leveraging the analytics and the visualizations available to them, leveraging this set of capabilities in NetCool Operations Insight. So that's a key testimonial. And these, just so you know, all these testimonials are available on YouTube with customer testimonials. You'll see snapshots here of those videos so you can hear it directly from the customers themselves. Next slide, please. So I talked a little bit about these the embedded operations analytics solutions across our portfolio, and we have essentially bundled in both our application performance management as well as our NetCool Operations Insight a use of analytics tools, primarily log analysis capabilities for a bundling, but also the Predictive Insights or Predict pillar is always a tack-on capability. So they work hand in hand. But within APM, we have entitled all application performance management users as well as the legacy Tivoli monitoring users for the use of log analysis. So you will have entitlement to that. If you know where you normally download APM software from Passport Advantage, there's a new package there, log analysis, available to you, and essentially a licensing update entitlement to give you 2 gigabytes of daily ingestment on any data source on a daily basis. And so you actually, if you're an APM or ITM customer today, have entitlement to use log analysis up to 2 gigabytes per day. The same thing for NetCool Operations Insight. For Omnibus customers, they have to upgrade to NetCool Operations Insight. There's trade-offs to make that really easy for you. But again, the analytics are for use of unlimited data on the event data, but you also have 2 gigabytes a day for any data source. for searching. So you have this embedded search capability and entitlement for both APM and NICL Operations Insight without doing anything. Okay, it's there for you. Now, of course, if you want to ingest more data and actually have additional data sources with wider sources of data, then you can additionally contract for more search, and you can also tack on more capabilities, including prediction to each of those through the Predict pillar as additional capabilities. But there is embedded analytics entitlement to both APM and NICL Operations Insight. In addition, for those that outsource through our Global Technology Services area, we have specific packages built for the GTS customers that leverage the operations analytics capabilities. So these allow you to get rapid time to value, specific packages here for GTS clients that use the strategic outsourcing GTS capability within IBM. So look for those as well through your GTS counterparts if you are leveraging those outsourcing capabilities. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Matt to round up a few things and then show some of this in action.
Yep. So I'm going to keep this screen up real quick, this chart up real quick while I get ready to switch over to a demo. But basically want to talk about, we have a new ecosystem community, developer.ibm.com/ITOA. That's our IT Operations Analytics Developers community. It's a place where you can find a lot of the plugins and extensions to these products to pull in and analyze operational data from a number of different sources. It's also a place where there's lots of technical how-to blogs and videos in terms of real-world problem solving. So this is a place to come and interact with our with the technical community around extending these solutions. And for those that have been around IBM for a long time, this is sort of the next turn of the crank of the DeveloperWorks brand within IBM, and this is our presence there for IT Operations Analytics. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to a demo here, and I'm going to demo directly off our Service Engage page. We actually just recently, in the last week, launched an IT Operations Analytics presence on our Service Engage property, where you can learn, explore, try, buy our products. So I've just brought up the screen here to our main homepage on Service Engage, and I'm not going to go through this in much detail. I'll leave that for you guys to look at after we get off the webcast here, and at the end here I'll paste a link to Service Engage in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us through a demo of the Predictive Insights offering, particularly the Predictive Insights offering integrated in with our APM solution on Service Engage. So I'm going to try to go through this in the next probably about 7 minutes here, so it's going to be pretty quickly. By the way, if I go too fast or you can't see it, you can take yourselves directly through this demo. This live guided demo is on the internet, and you can walk yourself through the demo as well. So what we can see here is an application dashboard in our APM product, which shows us some details of the applications that we're monitoring in our particular environment and the set of alerts and events that are come up on those particular applications. So within this screen, we have a particular app that we're going to look at. It's the credit card processing app, and you can see that it has a number of alerts. You can tell by the badges here. There's actually a special alert, which is this red diamond on top of the alert, that tells me that not only are there normal monitoring events, but there is an anomaly event which comes from our Predictive Insights product. And as we can see when we go look at the event list for that particular application, we can see that there's an event here at the top, anomaly detected. The response time on this particular WebSphere application is higher than it was expected to be. Again, you can see the badge here indicating that this is an anomaly event. And what we can do is we can launch in context into Predictive Insights to go take a look at what we know about this particular anomaly event. So just kind of navigate you through. We've now launched into Predictive Insights, and what we're seeing on the screen here are a couple different things. Well, first of all, we can see that we're looking at, in black here, the line is the value of the response time metric, and over time. The green band that is around it is the observed baseline, the model that was built by Predictive Insights by observing this particular metric as it flows over time. And the red bands, the red vertical bands, indicate regions where this metric was anomalous, where Predictive Insights alerted that this particular metric was anomalous. So now if we can look at the bottom of the screen, we can see that we've also provided with a list of related metrics. Now, we didn't have to input a model into Predictive Analytics and tell it that these metrics were related, but we've got, so the particular metric we're looking at is from a WebSphere machine, but there's also this pool hit ratio from a database agent. And if we look on the information box here, that when the response time metric on this WebSphere server is anomalous, 100% of the time, this pool hit ratio on the database is also anomalous. So that's rather interesting news for us in trying to figure out how to triage the problem. So we can bring that particular metric up onto the graph on the screen at the same time. And we can also, if we want to switch, we can look at the baseline of that particular metric. And as you can see, it's got a different baseline that's observed for that particular metric. But you can also see that the bands where the anomalies are at the same place. Let's go back to response time, to our original metric here. And you can see if there's a third metric here, which is also from the database agent, around blocks written per second. And I can pull that onto the screen. And in this case, the metric is causally related. It's not anomalous at the same time, but it is related, and it moves in a related pattern with both of these two metrics. So again, it's related and may be useful in helping you triage and diagnose the problem. So a couple other things that are of interest. I know I'm going through this rather quickly. There's some steps that you can take yourself through to dig this into a little bit more detail after the call. But if we look at this period of time on the graph here, there's a couple interesting things off towards the left here. If you look at where I'm putting my cursor here over on the left, we can see a response time spike here. So looks like for one data interval, right, I had a spike of response time that went way up and came way back down. And you'll notice that in that particular spot, there's no red band. We didn't actually throw an anomaly. So Predictive Insights said, well, I think that may be an outlier, right? And if you've got some kind of a static threshold, perhaps you're going to catch that. But I don't see this as deviating from the normal behavior, right, when I do that. Another interesting sort of, and in a different way, value is if you look over here, we did throw an anomaly alert, but it looks like we probably barely cracked out of the baseline that's been measured and observed. And that's really, again, this is the analytics engine saying, yeah, I know the metric is not very much above what your baseline is, but the way it's moving and the way it's deviating from the way I've observed it to have behaved in the past, this is anomalous, and I think you should check on it. So again, this really kind of goes to show how you can get a lot more fine-grained detail than you could if you had a static threshold that you constantly had to be moving. So the last piece that I'm going to kind of take a look at here with this on the particular screen here, before I give Steve a chance to show another demo, is if we go to the anomaly in question, which is right here, right? This is an anomaly that was raised at 10:15 in the evening. That response time had started to become anomalous. In this particular scenario, in the application environment that we pulled this scenario from, the static threshold for response time was set at 2,000 milliseconds, which is this bar right here, which is at 8:15 a.m. the next morning. But even if you had it set somewhere else down here, you know, say at 3:40, somewhere where you might have hit at 3:45 in the morning, you can see that Predictive Insights gave us this window of visibility into the fact that we were deviating from normal behavior, and at the time we started alarming, we were literally just outside of the baseline. We were deviating from normal behavior, and we probably want to go and take a look at it. In the analysis of this particular problem, this happened to be it was a database configuration on the particular server behind WebSphere that was causing this particular slowdown. But we were given anywhere from, depending on where you had your static threshold set, we were given anywhere from about an 8 to a 12-hour head start to go look and find this problem before that static threshold, which maybe that static threshold represents your SLA, was actually triggered. So again, that's the real value here, is this notion of shifting to the left, getting earlier notification of not only that you're having an emerging problem, but also with a single particular metric, but also with the related metrics within that environment that can help you then figure out where the problem is. So I know I went through that demo real quick, but I want to give Steve a chance to do another demo as well. He's going to cover some of the both the NetCool Operations Insight and the log analysis bits in a use case here. So I'm going to pass the mic back over to Steve so that he can share with you another demo. So Steve, give me just a moment to find you on the list here and make you the presenter.
Okay, while he's doing that, I know we're going to be short for time here for the demos, but we've put the links here in the presentation. I also put a location for the demos in the chat for those that may not get to be able to download this presentation. So you can go there. It's on our Service Engage site and allows you to do exactly what we're showing you here, but on your own time and in a fully hosted environment. So what Matt just went through, hopefully you can see the screen now, is the demo that's associated with the Predictive Insights, or the Predict pillar. This one here is associated with NetCool Operations Insight and our Optimize area, but it covers a lot of the log analysis capability due to the embedded capabilities of log analysis within that offering. And there's about 5 different scenarios. I won't have time to get through all of them. I'll quickly show you the event search. This is the embedded capability within NetCool Operations Insight. So NetCool Operations Insight is, again, your ops domain, managing your entire environment here. There's an event viewer here that gives you a list of all the events that you've configured to be displayed by various users and by various criticality. Here is a critical alert here. And I can actually, through just a passing here, look at an event analytics capability for that specific area within that critical alert, so an event distribution for that specific area of events, time-wise and criticality nature. And you'll see here that they're pooled here within, they had some previous year around the same time, but here you'll see around January 15th, where the majority of these are coming through. And if you analyze these events, I'll scroll down here. This is a standard event distribution type display that you can use across any of these event views. You can see that there is a pooling around a certain ports and a certain node here within each of those events. So rapidly you can see that those events really weren't unique in a lot of cases. They were very much pooled to this one area, and you can actually then quickly diagnose issues associated with those events, because you know that they're all very common from this quick display. So this is just a way of showing you rapidly how you can do rapid visualization of events directly within your event viewer. In terms of rapid diagnostics, I think one of the key things here is let's look at operational efficiency just for a second. This is one other area. Again, it's very click-through, just so you know. It tells you where to click and how everything goes. I'm going through this rapidly, but this summary screen here gives you an idea of where you're looking to actually solve or reduce your event load. Over here, you're seeing that these squares over here are considered where subject matter experts believe that there's no action to be taken. And you can see a lot of, through your alert keys, that there's a lot of events being associated or burdening your operations people that are actually not actionable. These ones down here have a severity of indeterminate. So, and there's probably a lot of commonality between these, showing you that have a lot of event load going to your operators right now that, one, you haven't determined a severity and actually are not actionable. So by quickly viewing this, looking at how your operations teams have event loads associated with it, you can quickly determine rules and quickly determine situations that need to be, have some specific rule conditions and actually suppress a lot of the alerts so that your operators are much more efficient. And this is, something you can do on a daily, hourly, weekly basis to make sure that you're always operating at the most efficiency. And this analysis used to be done, through, posting stuff in a warehouse and doing some reports on it, looking at it monthly and things like that. But this is now very dynamic on the latest data so that you're always operating in the utmost efficiency. And one other demo here, which is a proactive analysis, this actually takes you through the adding of Predict, again, into, and I'm going through this rapidly, so just because of time, I want to get to a few questions. And so what Matt just showed you a minute ago in terms of Predictive Insights, again, operating seamlessly within your operations environment and NetCool Operations Insight. But then within that, you can rapidly get to our free-form search context. So, and within log analysis, you get both the raw view, you get a nice grid view here of data summarizing what you're searching. It gives you a histogram here showing you where all those hits were and actually how much of those hits of that search came through. Allows you to rapidly drill into the source data. And in this case, the scenario is that there's no connections available. A run book tells you to do these other searches. I can quickly run into and do these additional searches. And when I put in, say, anything about get connection or anything about close connection, you'll see that I have a number of hits. And this time period is of the search. So you're actually looking at the short time window across these various searches. And what you've done from an operations perspective is quickly triaged that, yes, you do have essentially a connection problem causing those critical alerts, confirmed through searching of the raw source logs immediately, and then you can pass this on to an application expert to actually do a little bit more triage, but you know confidently that there is a connection issue due to these rapid searches you've done directly against the log sources. Of course, this is a tool used by both developers as well as the subject matter experts to take it the next step further as a part of the demos as well. So that gives you just a very little taste. I stress that you can easily go into these demos from those links and actually do look at them for yourself here. And I'm going to stop sharing and just going back to the deck, and we're going to go take a few questions here now.
Hey, so Steve, this is Matt. So I just was scrolling back while you were chatting there. So we covered most of them. One of the questions that did come up a little while back was, and I'm not sure which offering it was in particular for, but it was how long do we store data for analysis? And let me first, I'll take that from the Predict point of view because that's what I know. So from a Predict point of view, we don't store metric data, right? The metric data is stored at wherever the tool is collecting the metrics. We stream metric data through, and we build models, including historical models of the relationships of that data, and we'll store it for as long as we'll store models historically for as long as we've built the data for. Steve, do you know an answer to that, generally speaking, from a log point of view, in terms of how long is our data stored?
It really depends a little bit on your requirements. But in general, you have the capability for rapid searches, like what you're going to be doing intraday. Those are generally things that you'll index and store those indexes in memory so that they're actually very fast. They come back with, within a second or so, all the various searches through from that short period of data, because those are your triaging immediately and trying to get to root cause on. Then you have the ability to actually store those data in a second tier, primarily around disk-based searches, and it's seamless. Okay, so essentially you set up these policies. This much is going to be in-memory indexing. These ones are going to be disk-based indexing, and then we have as I mentioned, the new release supports Hadoop-based clusters, so you have a whole big data platform to put in even longer-term storage, up to years, of data that you can search across. But some of those searches, of course, will take minutes, okay, to respond back on. But that's okay because you're actually looking for trends and patterns and when these things have occurred before. So it's not essentially a rapid diagnostic issue, but you can quickly, within the user interface, decide, okay, I'm looking at just short-term, just today, intraday, or am I doing something across the last year and I want to actually look for patterns and trends. So you have the ability to store and keep live indexes across the board between very short-term and very long-term, but of course managing that to your specific requirements so that you have speed of response is critical.
So I know we're right at the top of the hour. One question that just came in from Robert here at the bottom in terms of warning the system that new application or workload is going to be introduced in the future. I'm going to guess that that is related to the Predict and Predictive Insights capabilities, right, in terms of the notion of being able to say, hey, the CPU might go up on this particular server right now because I'm about to, add a second application stack onto that particular machine. And there isn't a way for that to happen. So, but the model itself will learn and will adjust. The model is constantly adjusting as new data comes in. So I know we're at the top of the hour here. Before I hand it back to Robin to wrap up, but rest assured we can continue this conversation in the forums and the Tivoli user community. I just want to make sure that folks are aware that next week, a week from today, in fact, there's an IT Ops chat on IT Operations Analytics, and there's a URL on the screen that you can join that. That will allow you to participate in this chat that happens over Twitter. We're going to have a number of subject matter experts on there talking about trends and new technology and industry predictions around IT Operations Analytics. So we can continue some of this conversation there. But Robin, I'll pass it back over to you for now.
Okay, great, thanks. And yeah, just adding to that, we'll have our replay posted in the TUC website. You'll be provided an email after the webcast with the link to that, and then we'll start a forum discussion with all of the questions that were asked today. So if any questions weren't answered, we can address them at a later date. So thanks so much for spending the hour with us, and a special thank you to Matt and Steve for offering your time and sharing your knowledge with us. We really appreciate it. And again, please visit the TUC website where we'll post a recorded webcast from today, and also join the forum discussion on the topics that we've discussed on today's talk. This concludes today's conference. You may now disconnect. Have a wonderful day.